As football season looms closer to the playoff push, Saturdays and Sundays are heating up, along with tempers of friends and family. And can you blame them? They haven't seen you in months. Luckily, it's never too late to make it up to them with 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, when you order 24 autumn roses for only $29.99, 1-800-Flowers will give you an extra half dozen roses plus a vase absolutely free. That's up to 40% off the original price. This beautiful arrangement of fall, red, orange, and yellow roses will leave her stunned and you without spending a fortune. It's the best of both worlds. Amazing roses at an unbeatable price. These gorgeous roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak and shipped overnight to ensure freshness. 12 autumn roses for $29.99 plus another half dozen roses and a vase for free. It's an incredible deal, but you have to jump on it now. There's 1-800-Flowers.com, and then there's everybody else. You know who I trust and depend on for life's most important moments. To order 12 autumn roses for $29.99 plus another half dozen roses and a vase for free, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/Mike. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/Mike.
Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
We passed the midway point of the NFL season yesterday. We rolled into the final fortnight of our time together. And the days, Mike, that I will not miss are the days like these, the ones where we cannot possibly start talking about sports until we spend a moment, as they say in the show Hamilton, working through the unimaginable, this time in a tiny town in Texas. And, Mike, these are the times when it's very difficult to know what to say. Obviously, we'll talk about football this morning, as we assume that's what everyone wants us to do, but it's impossible to ignore what seems to be just a constant string of horrendous tragedy.
You do. You run out of things to say. The First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas, more than 24 dead. A 26-year-old kid. I mean, are you kidding me? 26 years old, walks into a church and just starts shooting, and people ranging from age of 5 years old to 72 were killed in this. You're right. It happens all too often. We've had to talk about it all too often, and you run out of things to say other than, your thoughts and prayers are with the families of those affected as everybody sits and tries to figure out why. We ask that question way too many times. Why? Why did this happen? Why is this going on? Why are these things happening? And is there a way to stop something like this? I have no ideas as to answer to all of those.
No, the one thing I haven't figured out in all these years, it's exactly what the appropriate thing is to say on a show like this one at a time like this. There are other places where it would be appropriate to talk about this at great length and dive deeply into the issues, but this isn't a place to do that. So it is a place, I think you're right, just for us to say how horrible it makes us feel and how horribly we feel for all the people who are directly involved and connected. And then the only thing that we can figure to do is to try and take you back where you want to be if you are spending the morning with us, which is to hear us talking about football. And there certainly is plenty of that out there, plus a lot of other sports news as well. So let's do it. Let's dive right into it here with Off the Top. And it starts with James Harden, Mike, who put up 56 points yesterday in a big Rockets win over Utah.
Yeah, he did. In terms of total points scored or assisted on, James Harden had the third most prolific offensive game in NBA history on Sunday. He's now scored or assisted on 90 points on 2 separate occasions. So Sunday he accounted for 91 points. December 31st, 2016, he accounted for 95 points. You know who holds a record on that one? March 2nd, 1962. Some large human being.
Yeah, he had 100 points scored.
He accounted for 104 points. I guess he had 2 assists as well. You know what? He dished the ball. He dished the ball.
Yeah, well,
Off the top.
Should have his own record book. Hawks get their second win of the season. I actually was just looking at the standings over breakfast yesterday morning, trying to get my sense of equilibrium, and I noticed the Hawks only had 1 win on the year, and then they went out and they beat LeBron and the Cavaliers yesterday for their second.
The Cavaliers are 1-4 as double-digit home favorites, and that would be losses to the Hawks, the Pacers, the Knicks, and the Magic. They were double-digit favorites. They lost at home. The Cavs, count them out of the NBA Finals now, gang. Cavaliers are 4-6 this season. Only 8 teams in NBA history have reached the NBA Finals after having a losing record through 10 games. None since 1980-81 Rockets. So they're pretty much done.
Yeah, they're obviously not done. I know that you're kidding.
No, I am kidding, yeah.
At what point does it cease to be, everything will be fine? And does it become, the team has some problems? I mean, there are some
defensively
legitimate holes.
Listen, we said they're worst in the league in defensive efficiency. I don't think that's a shock. They were this bad last year, and they got to the finals as well. They're going to be bad again this year. I don't think that's magically going to turn around. Can you play better? You heard LeBron talking after the game about everybody's got to come with the effort, and we've seen his last 2 games, 56, 57 points and high 40s again Friday night and 40-something last night. I mean, when they were down 16 or 19, it brought them back in the fourth quarter to down just 2, and they couldn't finish it again. That's what we keep talking about. When LeBron's not on the court, can you get somebody to do something to keep a game close? And right now they don't have the answer to that.
They get Isaiah Thomas back, and yesterday they played without Kevin Love, who was sick and all that. You keep telling yourself, they'll be fine.
Yeah, you do.
And they probably will. But right now they're not.
Off the top.
All right, it was a good day for the top of the 2016 NFL Draft. Like 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the 2015 quarterbacks, Jameis and Mariota, versus the 2016 quarterbacks, Goff and Wentz. Mariota and Winston came in with a lot more fanfare. They came in with substantially higher draft grades. But right now, Wentz and Goff are leading the 2 best teams in the NFC, and they are the reasons why.
2 top scoring teams in the league as well. The Rams have already scored more points this year than they did all of last year.
That's incredible.
It really is.
They're halfway through the season.
Goff threw 4 touchdowns. Wentz threw 4 touchdowns. No interceptions. It's the first time in NFL history that the first 2 quarterbacks selected in the same draft, not necessarily 1 and 2, had at least 4 touchdowns and no interceptions in the same week. I'm surprised at that. It's the first time in NFL history, let me say that again, that the first 2 quarterbacks selected in a draft threw 4 touchdowns and no interceptions on the same day. These are the 2 best teams.
They are
in the game.
They are. Now look, I mean the Broncos are in a state of disarray.
Yes, they are.
And the Giants, who the Rams beat,
oh my gosh,
are so bad. It's hard to fathom. But don't take anything away from what those guys did and what those teams are doing. We'll get back to them in a minute. The Saints win their 6th straight against another horrible team. The Buccaneers are terrible. There, another one made me. I picked the Giants to make the playoffs, and they should fire their coach.
I did
today.
as well.
And I picked the Buccaneers to make the playoffs, and they should fire their coach today. Those 2 teams are terrible, and they're not trying hard.
It's. I don't know if I'm going to go. That
the
far.
Giants aren't even making an effort to tackle anybody. They're just watching guys run by them, and the Buccaneers are in total. What's the word I'm looking for? Like
disarray?
Yeah, disarray, but like from a discipline standpoint. I mean, the stuff they're doing on the field is just crazy.
The Saints, though, let's go back to them because they were the big winners here. Are the 4th team in the Super Bowl era to win at least 6 consecutive games immediately after losing its first 2 or more games in a season. So, I mean, they got it going on. And we know offensively when Drew Brees is leading the show that Alvin Kamara, the kid from Tennessee, has been a great, obviously, pick for them to go with Ingram. Adrian Peterson no longer there, who's doing really incredible things out in Arizona that we'll talk about as well. But no doubt, absolutely positively no doubt, the Saints were never going to get back up near the upper echelon until their defense is improved, and it has improved.
Off the top.
And finally, the marquee game of the day was the Chiefs and the Cowboys. And I thought from an entertainment standpoint, it lived up
I agree.
to the bill. Alex Smith, the headline here is that he was intercepted for the first time this season, and the Cowboys wound up getting the win.
Yeah, Alex Smith had gone 287 straight passes without an interception to start the season. It breaks the Bernie Kosar record of 286 to begin the 1991 season, but he did have that interception. He tried to force one into Travis Kelce, and why wouldn't you? You want to throw it to Travis Kelce. Could have used a better drive there. I had Kelce in my fantasy.
So did I.
I know. Yeah, I was trying to get past Wingo. As you're trying to tonight.
I will tonight. I got him tonight. Marvin Jones, baby.
Yeah, you do. You need him tonight. But I agree with you. It's a game that lived up, and it's a game that you see that offense moving with Zeke Elliott, and you just keep wondering week after week, is Zeke Elliott going to be on the field?
Yeah, and yesterday, I'll tell you what.
Off the top.
Let's make that off the top presented by Progressive Insurance. Customers who switch to Progressive save an average of $500. Call or click today. Find out how they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. I'm going to get to some other stuff in a second. But you tell me, because I know you watched that game. Did the Chiefs they obviously did everything they could to take Zeke out of that game, but he never got it rolling yesterday. He has been on such an incredibly hot streak, and he never got it. Yes, he scored a touchdown late, and yes, his numbers will wind up looking decent, though not Zeke-like, but he sort of never got it going yesterday.
They're a good defense. I mean, listen, when we normally see him running for 110, 120, 150, you take 27 for 93. You take 31 for 131 yards as a team because you're controlling the clock, you're controlling the ball, so the running game is working for the Cowboys. Unlike it wasn't. Now, did they hold him certainly down to what he normally does? Yeah, but they still got the carries in. They still got a good amount of yards in. So the running game, as far as I'm concerned, was successful yesterday.
I agree totally. I just meant as far as Zeke Elliott is concerned. You expect him to break a big play here or there, and he wasn't able really to do it. But give the Chiefs defense credit for that. All right, let's start, though, with those quarterbacks and the Eagles and the Rams. Yeah. I think it is fair to say, if you watched all the games in the NFL yesterday, you watched Seattle, who they had a bunch of different things go wrong on them yesterday, including 3 missed field goals and a lot of other things. But you look at Seattle play and you look at the Rams play. I think the Rams look like a better team. And then you look at the rest of the NFC play and you look at the Eagles play and you say the Eagles are the best team. The Eagles and the Rams right now are the 2 best teams in the NFC.
The one thing that will, between the Rams and the Seahawks, remember they played once already and the Seahawks won that game, is the defense. I guess sans I was just talking with Hembo before the game asking should Baldwin have taken a knee before scoring that touchdown to burn more time? And my answer was, if it's a 40-35 game and the offenses are up and down the field, you think about it. If you don't have the defense Seattle has, maybe you think about it. Name me the other drive in the game that Washington had like that against that Seattle defense. I'll wait. You can't, because they didn't. You trust your defense. This is a great defense. They were pressuring Cousins. They were hitting Cousins. And then they gave up that drive. There's no way I expected that to happen. No way I expected that to happen.
I was actually wondering if Washington should take a knee
on the
1 yard line with 1 minute
left.
It's
the exact same thing I thought of. Don't leave Seattle anytime back. But here's the deal. The Rams offense is way better than the Seattle offense, but I still take that Seattle defense. That was a bad drive they gave up against Washington. I get it. But the Rams defense, they'll certainly get after the passer. They're not great against the run by any stretch, but they'll definitely get after the passer. The Seattle defense is definitely better than the Ram defense, in my opinion. But that Ram offense, man, you're putting up 31 points a game, 32 points a game. I mean, they are fantastic right now. They got it going on. The revamped line, Gurley, what he's doing, the different weapons they brought in.
Look, they were a team that had no offensive weapons except for Gurley last year.
And a quarterback that everybody questioned, saying, man, did they get the right guy? Wow.
And now he looks in control. Gurley looks like the player that he was as a rookie, and they've got Sammy Watkins out there, and they got a bunch of different guys. This Cooper Kupp obviously can play. He was a good college player, and they've just got a lot of good players out there. So right now, Goff playing great, Wentz playing great, and Scott Van Pelt making the point that we were making the other day. Suddenly, the young quarterbacks from that class look like they may be the ones who turn out to be legends.
Jared Goff and Carson Wentz went 1-2 in the 2016 draft, and there were many, including me, who wondered if the desperate need for someone to adequately play the quarterback position didn't force those teams to reach. Halfway through year 2, the returns indicate, and I would say emphatically so, no, they did not reach. Both quarterbacks and teams are rolling. LA and Philly each went for over 50 and won in routes.
Now, listen, again, you look at touchdown passes, as we mentioned, 4, no interceptions. Wentz only completed 55% of his passes. It wasn't like he was, 20 of 25. He was 15 of 27.
At Denver, he's playing,
it is a good defense. That's exactly right. But the key, obviously, is 4 touchdowns from him, 4 touchdowns from Goff. The man who was penalized and sent out of town to the Miami Dolphins, to the Philadelphia Eagles. I know we joke about that, and Jay Ajayi scores a touchdown in this game, and I get it.
He looked so happy, too.
Well, he did, and we're going to joke about it, saying, boy, you really showed him. You sent him from Miami to the best team in all of football. But you understand what went on there. They were, looking, Gase doesn't like what's going on down there, and he got rid of someone for it, so I get it. But, man, what a team to get sent to. So he upset. They're the most complete team in the NFL right now, without question. I mean, and that offensive line, even without Jason Peters, I mean, Wentz wasn't pressured. a whole lot yesterday, but by any stretch of the imagination, I mean, they are just doing an excellent job on both sides of the ball.
Absolutely. And so we are asked every single week by our friends at Sport Clips to pick an MVP moment of the week. It's brought to you by Sport Clips. Help fund scholarships for U.S. veterans. You can donate to the Help a Hero program at a Sport Clips near you. And if you were to ask right now, who is the MVP of the league, who feels like they would be the appropriate choice for MVP of the league, I think that right now the answer might be Carson Wentz. The Eagles are 8-1, and let me give you Carson Wentz's statistics. He's thrown for over 2,200 yards. He's completing a little over 60% of his passes. He's thrown 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So there are a couple of other options. Tom Brady might be one.
Sure.
I think Deshaun Watson had played himself into that conversation.
I think a couple of weeks ago, Alex Smith was one. He's only thrown the one interception.
I know, but I mean, they've lost 3 of their last 4.
I get it. That's what I said a couple of weeks ago. I mean,
right now, I think again, I think Deshaun Watson was there. And if ever you needed to wonder about it, how many points would they have scored yesterday against Indianapolis if Deshaun Watson was the quarterback of that team? Yesterday they scored 7. Don't let the final score fool you. I know they lost 20-14. They only scored 1 offensive touchdown.
Yeah, they did.
In that game. How many offensive touchdowns would they have scored if how valuable was Deshaun Watson to that team when you watch what they look like with Tom Savage playing quarterback for them? But put that aside, because Watson obviously isn't going to be the MVP now. I think right now it's Wentz and Brady.
I think you think out of it. I think it's Wentz. I think
Brady's got to be right there.
Oh, no, I didn't say that. I'm just saying you're asking me to pick Carson Wentz is who I'm picking. We're at that that halfway, right over the halfway point. So we got a lot of football go. It's like naming the Heisman favorite right now. I mean, it changes every single week, and it's changing again. Baker Mayfield is going to be the guy on the top of the list. So we do this now, but it'll change next week and change in 3 weeks and maybe change by the end of the year, but we'll see. But he's on that pace, is Carson Wentz, to be the MVP.
I've got a pretty good little trivia question for you here. I can put it a couple different ways. If Carson Wentz were to win the MVP, and of course, as you point out correctly, at one point yesterday, I heard the guy on Red Zone say, with one of the finals yesterday, they were the exact midway point of the NFL season. That's why I said it that way. But so we're only halfway home. So clearly, any number of things could change. But if Wentz wins the MVP award in his second season, he would become the 4th player ever to win MVP. Is it 5th player? It's 5 awards, but 4 players, right? He'd become the 4th. He'd become the 5th player. Sorry, it's 4 players have done it before. He'd become the 5th player ever to win the MVP award in either his first or second season. So I could do the trivia question in a number of ways. I could have you name the others. I could have you name the most recent. Let's stew on that for just a moment. Let's make it the most recent. Who was the last player to win the MVP award in his first or second season? Against Wentz would be doing it in his second, were he to do it here. We'll give you the answer in just a couple of minutes. In the meantime, should the Giants fire their coach today? Wow. If you watch that game yesterday, if you watch the touchdown that they gave up on that first play, I know that the Tyreek Hill play, I saw you guys tweeting about it, the Tyreek Hill play where they, at the end of the first half yesterday, that was terribly defended by the Dallas Cowboys. That was just poor defense.
That was poor defense.
But if you watch the touchdown that the Rams scored early in that game where they dumped the ball off to Woods and he went running down the field, and the Giants defense, half of whom are hurt and half of whom are suspended, just turned and watched him go by. I thought to myself, this is embarrassing.
Well, I mean, there's the play on the field, and we've seen what's going on off the field, obviously, as well. And so the questions of control of the team, between your head coach and sometimes your D coordinators running after players after games, outside the locker room. I mean, to me, nobody likes calling for anybody's job or wants anybody to get fired. But it seems like that team, listen, they're going to meet. I think there's going to be a new head coach. I think the bigger question is, are you moving on from Eli Manning? To me, that's the bigger question. Are you ready to move on? Or do you say, listen, we still don't have a running game. All our receivers are hurt. Evan Ingram's going to get a great chance to kind of really get a great introduction into the NFL as the tight end, who I like a lot, but he's going to get a lot of opportunities. So do you say, well, the quarterback this year, whoever it was, had no shot, so you bring I don't think McAdoo's surviving this. I think there's going to be more than a few coaches that are going to be on the chopping block here. I think he's definitely going to be one of them. And again, it's not just play on the field. Whether if you look at it and see it's lackluster, it's what's been going on in the locker rooms. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of control there at this point. And, they know that in the locker room. They know way more of, obviously, what's going on. They're in it. They're living it. To me, that's going to be the easier question of this. Or do you give the head coach my thought was even do you give the head coach a break because you lost all your pieces on offense, but you just don't like how things are being held together. And as Ben McAdoo, he stood up there and he says, listen, it all falls back on me. He's saying exactly what is true. You're the head coach. You have to take it all because it all does come back to you. So it is going to be on him. He knows it's on him. I don't think he survives this. And then the biggest question is going to be, what do you do with Eli Manning? You just say, okay, we'll get our weapons back. Odell will get back. Odell's going to get paid. We'll have other weapons. Maybe we'll get a running back in the draft. Maybe we'll have a running game to go with it. And we give it one more shot because we still like our defense, though you wouldn't know it yesterday. That, to me, is the bigger question. Are you ready to move on from Eli Manning?
Yes, I totally agree with you because I think it's a fait accompli. They're going to change coaches and they're going to change general managers. And then you'll hire a new general manager who'll hire a new coach, and the coach will decide whether or not he wants to try and build something around Eli. Because you were right. You could make an argument looking at the names on the backs of the jerseys that they could be close if they all come back in healthy. The problem that McAdoo has is that even when everyone was healthy, their offense was terrible. Last year, they made the playoffs with an offense that didn't score 20 points like the last 6 games of the season. Their defense just sort of carried them, and then this year their defense, I think, just at one point their defense just said, forget it. We're done here. And now they're all suspended and everything else. So that's a terrible situation. There's 2 places yesterday where I watched it, and what they have in common is they're both places where they ran out established, successful coaches. In Tampa, they ran out Lovie Smith.
Yeah, they did.
Because they couldn't afford to lose Dirk Cutter because of the relationship he had with Winston. And then they ran out Tom Coughlin because they couldn't afford to lose Ben McAdoo because of the relationship he had with Eli Manning. And look how that's worked out. Those 2 teams put up embarrassing performances yesterday.
We've seen 3 places, you tell me if I'm missing one, where it was the quarterback whisperer year. Those 2 places and Adam Gase.
Right.
Going to Miami.
That's how they got their jobs.
Right. They got their jobs because, that was the hot thing then. There's the hot assistant coach. There's the hot, what's hot this year? What was hot that year was, this guy's a great relationship with quarterbacks. We're going to hire him and make him be now the CEO of the team. Sometimes you're better just being the CEO of the quarterback room and not of the entire team.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike tweets at us, it could be worse. The Giants could be the Browns. Here's what I'll say watching them. And look, I'm not trying to disparage human beings and their level of effort. Every guy out there I know is in his own way trying to do his best and all of that. But when you watch the Browns play, and they had a bye this week, they're hopeless because they're terrible. But they play with spirit. You watch them play. They look like they're out there. They're trying. They're fighting. The Giants yesterday, if you just look at the body language, they look totally defeated.
It's a team that came in with a lot of high hopes. Then your best player gets hurt in the preseason, so you're like, okay, let's get him healthy for the regular season. Then he's there in the regular season, and then boom, 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 you lose receiver. You have no running game. Everybody's talking about how your offensive line isn't very good. You start losing the game. So, again, all teams have promise at the beginning of the season, but all players kind of understand where they are, and when the season starts to kind of progress, you're like, okay, this is kind of where we fit. And for Cleveland, it is, again, kind of rebuilding. They're rebuilding with a new quarterback. They have new organization. They have another plan of what they're trying to do. The Giants, it's like, hey, we're ready to make hay. Our defense, we paid money and we drafted, and it's a good defense. We have the best receiver in the game right there. We have a quarterback who's seasoned. We think we're ready to go. And then it just all falls apart. So mentally, you were ready to be one of the top teams, and now you're sitting here looking at 1-7 and a whole hell of a lot of games left to go.
Robert tweets at you, the Giants is what happens when players is what happens to players when they get rid of a coach, Coughlin, because he is too discipline-oriented. It's interesting. I mean, again, they ran Coughlin out of there. I've still never fully understood why, because they couldn't afford to lose Ben McAdoo because of his relationship with Eli, and the offense has been terrible ever since. And then in Tampa, by dark of night, without the owners even talking about it publicly, they fire Lovie Smith, and they need to have Dirk Cutter there, and that thing is falling apart.
That's what I'm saying.
Completely.
That was the hot thing. I mean, all of a sudden, Eli was having his best time when McAdoo was running the offense, right? It's like, well, wait a minute. Okay, Coughlin's been around a long time. Let's start this new relationship. Look what Adam Gase did in Chicago with Jay Cutler. Let's give him a job, then he'll do it with Tannehill in Miami. Look at Dirk Cutter. Yeah, Lovie Smith, I get it. But Dirk Cutter, boy, that relationship with Jameis, let's give him the job. You find out sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sean McVay, youngest coach going out to the Rams, has a great reputation like that, and that's working right now. But in those other three, it's just not.
Well, Straight Talk right now, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. We had a little bit of this conversation on Friday, Mike Booger and I, when you weren't here. Actually, it was Field Yates who brought it up. That was the day after the Jets had beaten the Bills on the Thursday night weekend opener. And Field brought up, as crazy as it sounds, Todd Bowles deserves some consideration right now for Coach of the Year at the midway point. And you and I both heard Scott Hansen on NFL Network yesterday say at some point yesterday we reached the exact midway point of the National Football League season. And I agree with that. I believe that his name deserves to be bandied about because they've already won more games than their Vegas over-under before the season.
Yeah.
But right now he's not my Coach of the Year. And the Eagles are a great team, and Doug Peterson deserves an enormous amount of credit, but he's not my Coach of the Year. Sean McVay is the Coach of the Year. To me, you take that Rams team, you look at what he's done with Goff alone. Goff last year, people were ready to give up. You brought it up a minute ago. To me, what he's done in L.A., he's 31 years old. And for me right now, he's the NFL Coach of the Year.
You had an old lineman in Greg Robinson a few years ago you took as a number 2 pick overall. You end up getting rid of him. That didn't work out. You have a number 1 pick in Jared Goff, who a lot of people thought after his rookie year, oh, my God, did they make a mistake? You have to revamp the O-line. Aaron Donald, the best interior D lineman in the game, is holding out. You knew he was going to show up, but there was a thought, would he show up halfway during the season, so it could get the year counted for him? He shows up right before the first game to help that defense out. So I'm with you. I would absolutely put it in his hand of where that team was and where they are now, and especially with what Goff is doing.
With that thought in mind, Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. So if we believe that right now Sean McVay is the NFL Coach of the Year at this point, and that Carson Wentz would get our vote for NFL MVP at this point. How about the other trophy out there, Mike? The other award, the Heisman Trophy. They're a lot closer to the finish of their season in college football, and this was a huge weekend for one of the candidates. It wasn't Saquon Barkley, who didn't score a touchdown and was held in check, and he went from being a prohibitive favorite to right now, I think, being in real trouble of falling out of the race in the last couple of weeks.
Agree.
Bryce Love, who everyone's been talking about like crazy at Stanford, got held in check, a season-low 69 rushing yards. J.T. Barrett, his candidacy lasted exactly 1 week.
Yep.
Josh Adams from Notre Dame, did he get hurt?
He got nicked in the game early and didn't play the rest. They didn't need him, so I wouldn't have put him out there either. But, they just started the campaign with the Trucking 33, hats out there and everything, and he certainly had put his name into the mix, but there was no need to put him back in the game when he got nicked up, so he did not have that Heisman moments at all.
And that means that Baker Mayfield, who had a great season on Saturday, winds up being right now your favorite. He threw for 598 yards and 5 touchdowns in what was a basketball game in the Big 12. And I have to admit, the Oklahoma State game, I don't know about you, and set aside some time. It was also forgetting whether you enjoyed it or not, because I mean, for me as a fan, it was entertaining, but. Yeah. I'm not impressed. Like, I don't walk away from that saying, okay, well, they win that game. They're one of the top 4 teams in the country. That you got to be able to win a game, 17-14 if you need to. That to me was, I know you hated it as a defensive player.
No, I did not. It's just awful. Listen, their game is going to be November 11th, TCU. I mean, that's
this week.
That's this week. They just beat Oklahoma State. Again, 62-52. It's ridiculous. This week is the game. TCU supposedly can play defense. I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek because they actually can play a little bit of defense. Going to be a game.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, everyone. Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS ConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Quick aside, during the television-only portion of the segment there a couple of minutes ago, they just did a very nice job compiling a bunch of our moments on the David Letterman show over the years, which, again, we were lucky enough. He asked us to be on 12 times. We actually got on 11 times because once we got bumped. But it is so much fun for me to watch those. And we actually had some very fun moments.
We did.
And the crew did a very good job putting those together. And what I have said many times, and I feel very much confirmed watching it there, is I think he really liked us. I really do. Dave enjoyed just having us on and talking about sports.
He liked talking about sports.
He did.
He was a big sports fan,
yeah.
So he looked for the opportunity to talk sports. The one thing I noticed there is I was ungodly fat, and I never wore anything that was slimming. It's when I was on that kind of, they look like bowling shirts.
The Charlie Sheen shirts.
The Charlie Sheen shirts. I was on a kick of those, which doesn't help your fatness at all, but accentuate it. And that's exactly what I did. And then, God forbid, they hit me with the one shot, and I had 4 chins. It was horrific. I made you look around in orbit.
The funny part is if you watch that thing, because they always put you next to Dave and me on the other side, which inflamed me, but no end. But that's neither here nor there. That was their choice. Dave liked you better than me, but I'm leaning out so far to try and make some sort of eye contact so I can make it was difficult. Be part of the conversation with Dave. It is funny, but look. So 2 things that are clear. You look better now than you do in any of those clips. Any of them. And the first of those, the first time we went on was 2006.
Yeah.
So you're 11 years older and you look better.
Yeah, I do. And we went on other talk shows, and you still get the second seat.
We went on Seth Meyers. He put you next to me.
A Northwestern grad. You thought you guys had that bond, and he didn't even put you next to him.
That killed me.
Yeah.
But that really was a thrill.
That was fun. Listen, could we idolized that guy. I mean,
totally.
We loved watching that show. So to be on it, man, anytime we were, and let's be honest, a lot of times it was, hey, this person couldn't show. Can you guys make it? Yes, we can. We'll be there.
But that's who we are.
Exactly
we're not. We don't have a movie coming out Friday that we're we're promoting. We're not. Brad Pitt.
What was it? The first one where he actually said congratulations.
Yes.
Did you guys win something? We're like, no.
It was the first time we went on when he's saying goodbye and thanks to us.
Yeah.
He actually says, "So guys, congratulations. Did you win something?" And Mike said, "We won absolutely nothing." Like you could tell in his mind, he's thinking, why are they here?
Why are these schmucks here?
But over the course of time, if you watch those again, I feel good about it because I feel like he really enjoyed talking to us.
That was one of the highlights of one of the 11 times of these 18 years of going on with Dave. That was a lot of fun.
Really was. Okay, let's get back to what we were talking about. I got a good stat for you on my vote for Sean McVay for Coach of the Year. Again, at some point yesterday, we reached the exact midway point of the NFL season, so it's a good time to sort of think about that. And I think Sean McVay has been the NFL's Coach of the Year. And here's a great reason why. Last season, the Rams scored points on 22% of their offensive drives. That was the worst in the NFL. This season, they have scored points on 52% of their offensive drives. That's the best in the NFL. So some statistics are complicated and some are really simple. And in terms of scoring points, they were the least efficient team in the entire NFL last year, and now they're the most. That's pretty simple. And yes, Goff is another year, but it's the new system, and it's working with this guy, and they've added some pieces, no question about it. But I think right now, at the age of 31, Sean McVay is the Coach of the Year.
Oh, I do as well. I don't even know if you'll get a ton of argument, quite honestly. I mean, there are others certainly that you would talk about as well, but as far as handing the award to someone, I don't particularly see there being competition right now.
On the opposite side of that is Ben McAdoo, who I think feels like the most likely coach to get fired before the season ends, with as badly as that thing has gone and as embarrassing as the day was yesterday. And here he was talking about it afterwards, because, Mike, you brought it up correctly, and it was in the open that we played there. The changes are coming with the Giants, for sure. I believe they will have a new front office. I believe they will have a new head coach going into next year. The real question is, will they have a new quarterback? Will Eli continue to start as this season goes on? You'll hear in this soundbite, Ben McAdoo's not making any promises.
You really can't look from my chair too far ahead, but you also have to look at getting some players some reps in the game. So we'll take a look and see if there's any players that we can give reps to that have a chance to be a part of our future.
Does that include the quarterback?
That includes everybody.
Do you have to start dressing 3 quarterbacks with a water at this point?
Again, we'll take that on a week-to-week basis. We'll take it on a week-to-week basis.
Well, and the other names at quarterback, you got Geno Smith there. I don't know if you're really talking about Geno Smith. And you got the rookie Davis Webb.
That's the one. That's the one you might want to take a look at.
Yep, that's the one. A third-round kid out of Cal. So big kid, 6'5", 230-pounder, big pocket guy standing there, whip the ball, got a heck of an arm. So you're going to get some time with him. Are you going to put him out on the field to see what he could do? That's going to be the interesting question because you are a 1-7 team that is going nowhere. You've got issues on that team. Do you start playing other guys? What's McAdoo? McAdoo is still going to coach. So does he want to look at other guys to see what they're going to be down the road of a part of this team that he probably won't be part of? Or do you not and keep playing the other guys, to try and get wins so maybe you can have a job there? But you heard him say you start to look around because what's going on in the field right now, quite honestly, is horrible. So letting some other guys, some young guys, hungry guys that are ready to kind of start their career, kind of make a name for themselves. One thing, if you start to see some changes out there, you'll see some energy. You'll see some energy out of some younger players who are getting a chance to play.
Yeah. So I think that before you consider drafting a quarterback this year and you're going to have a high pick in a quarterback-filled draft, you got to get some look at Davis Webb, right?
Yep.
I mean, unless you just don't think there's any chance that he has any chance to be your future. And if you think that, then why did you take him?
Well, you took him because you thought, listen, it would be the exact same situation going on, and I hate to keep bring him up, but the Jets, which, by the way, I was stunned. Mike and I were calling that Temple Navy game on Thursday night, which we had a lot of fun doing. At one point, I looked up, we had a TV off to the side. It was 24-7 Jets. I'm like, oh, my God, what is going on?
Yeah, they pounded him.
But you look at Bryce Petty, Christian Hackenberg. It's not like they got a ton of time on the field to prove what they can do. It was kind of decided for them on the practice field that they couldn't really trust what was going on. I have no idea what's going on in New York, what we're seeing or what anybody's seeing out of Davis Webb there. But obviously they saw enough off the actual football field in game situations from those other quarterbacks in New York to decide that they're not for them.
Mark Halpern tweets at us, the Giants are who we thought the Jets were, which is actually a pretty good little note.
Circle that one. Hang on to it. You might get a bobblehead for that one.
Michael Burke, this is a good tweet as well. He says, Greeny, I know it's not a sexy pick and no one wants to talk about them, but Mike Zimmer has the Vikings at 6-2 with a rotating quarterback spot, deserves some Coach of the Year love.
Agreed.
That's 100% right.
Agreed. I completely. As I said, there are other coaches obviously in the running. I would give it to McVay, but that's an excellent choice. You're exactly right with the rotating quarterback position. I forget even rotating. I don't even count on Bradford anymore. I'm just really wondering, is Bridgewater going to make it back this year?
Fred Reyes tweets at us, what if the Jaguars bring in Cousins during the offseason? Hashtag Super Bowl contender. Kirk Cousins is going to cost you $100 million. I'm not sure what Eli Manning would cost you at this stage. If Tom Coughlin decided, you know what, he's the difference.
Well, he's not a free agent, so that'd be a trade, right? That would be a trade.
Yeah, so if the Giants decide they're going to move on from him,
right? Yeah,
that you find some way to make a deal there that works.
There's some interesting, because I absolutely think Jacksonville is going to move on to a quarterback. An interesting place to me are the Denver Broncos going to move on. I mean, or are they at some point just going to say, here, Paxton, you take over. You run the show now. They're sitting there at 3-5 right now.
Lost four straight.
Brock Osweiler's not going to be the answer there. Simeon was benched. So at some point you say, okay, we got to find out what's going on with Paxton Lynch here, who, again, was questionable to me without a doubt. And obviously he's not on the field yet as a regular starter, so there's some questions there as well.
I'd love to see Trevor Siemian be a quarterback in the NFL. Right now, if you look at it realistically, maybe his best spot is to be a good, solid backup.
Going to be a good, solid backup.
A good, solid backup quarterback.
Where he gets a chance every now and then through injury to show his work.
The question is, who's their long-term starter going to be? Now, they used a number one pick a couple of years ago on a guy that everyone said was a project. So, for the same reason that you said you don't write off Goff after 1 year, you don't write off Lynch yet. But if they're not ready to put him on the field next year, then you have yourself a problem. Okay, I have two more NFL sound bites I want you to hear, and then we'll go through a couple of other things. Mm-hmm. One of them is from Cam Newton. They played well yesterday, and they got themselves a nice win, Carolina did, in the division. So they're the team making chase at New Orleans, and the Falcons are in some trouble.
Yes, they are.
But afterwards, so Cam Newton was asked about Kelvin Benjamin being traded away, and when you hear him get to the part of the soundbite, and you'll know the obvious reason that it's getting a lot of attention. If you listen closely, you'll hear that he's searching for a word. He's searching for an example, and he just kind of came up with the wrong one. Here was Cam yesterday.
Nobody's even, giving us an opportunity. We just lost a great player, but nevertheless, the Titanic still has to go.
The Titanic still has to go.
Can never get enough Celine Dion.
At what point do you think he thought to himself, that isn't what I meant?
I don't know. I don't know.
The Titanic, and this is purely in fun because clearly that's just a moment where he's searching for something that moves.
If you watch it, you can absolutely tell he's searching for. I need a word here. I need an object here
that goes on.
The Titanic.
The Titanic.
That's it.
Of all the things he came up with, was the Titanic.
The Titanic.
Cam, that hit an iceberg.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean that. I'm not referencing them.
It's going to be all in fun, but it's a guy who, let's be honest, has struggled in the pressers.
I know, but this one is totally different.
This is just. I agree, but
that could happen to anyone.
Yes.
As one who has done 4 hours of live talk every day for 18 years, I know sometimes you search for an example and just the wrong one comes out of your mouth. But for him to come up, I want to play the soundbite again.
Hear him
Titanic.
searching.
Nobody's even, giving us an opportunity. We just lost a great player, but nevertheless, the Titanic still has to go.
Titanic. It tickles me. I just find it, again.
Maybe he just meant his heart goes on.
Yeah, look, he's just, and he did say go on.
Yeah,
so,
he did.
Maybe he wasn't referring to the actual ship, the Titanic.
I know, maybe later he'll say, I know the ship sank, but my heart went on.
Listen,
we're 6-3. It goes on and on and on.
Kate Winslet, her heart went on. The movie goes on and on and on. It takes 5 hours.
And could she have fit him on the floating piece of wood?
Joke. I didn't want to get into this.
I know you don't.
Leo DiCaprio's like 5'6". She could have fit Cam Newton onto that thing. He's like 6'8".
You know what? She wanted him to sink like a stone. He wasn't offering any kind of long-standing relationship.
She's got a $1 trillion diamond in her pocket.
Right.
Leo could have lived a delightful life as a very rich man. Instead, he's, at the bottom of the ocean, freezing to death because she needs the entire thing.
She thought he was an anchor, and truly he turned out to be sinking like a stone.
That's ridiculous. I hate that movie, but anyway,
I know you do.
It was a very funny I think accidental.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Little thing. One more. What happened with the fighting yesterday?
Oh,
what is that about?
Yeah, we had 5 players ejected from games yesterday. The AJ Green, Jalen Ramsey one, which got a ton of attention there, and then
because they're 2-star players.
Yes, and then in the San Francisco Arizona game,
Frosty Rucker,
CJ Beathard slid, got hit with a little late. Carlos Hyde came over to defend him. Frosty Rucker and Hassan Reddick, they all got into a scrape, and the 3 of them got tossed out. And the one guy that should have got tossed out, and Mike Evans from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, didn't get tossed out in that game. But it really all started with A.J. Green and Jalen Ramsey.
I say this hesitantly because I need to make 100% sure this is the case. But I'm 99% sure that when this stuff happens, the NFL officials on the field are sorting these things out amongst themselves without the benefit of some sort of person looking at the video. And so here's where I will, assuming that's accurate, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong, assuming that's accurate, then I will give a pass to the officials who it's very easy to see might not have seen what happened with Mike Evans, how blatantly he ran into the back there and just annihilated.
I don't know how nobody saw that.
Lattimore, who is, well, because they don't see who knows where everyone is looking exactly and why it happened. I get that. But my point is, all it would take is someone looking at the video for 1 second to say, oh, he's out. And I think someone looking at the video also would not have thrown out Jalen Ramsey.
I don't know why
Jalen Ramsey didn't deserve to get. Well, because I think the refs look around and they're lying on the ground.
You can sit there and say Jalen Ramsey instigated it, but he didn't force A.J. Green to give him a rear naked chokehold like George St. Pierre, choking out Michael Bisping, and UFC, 9,000 over the weekend.
No, Jalen Ramsey gave him a little shove at the end of the play, and then A.J. Green, if you didn't see it, he went around behind him and grabbed him around the neck.
He gave him a rear chokehold.
So A.J. Green had to get thrown out.
Absolutely. Because
Jalen Ramsey didn't.
It wasn't even for the rear chokehold and slamming him, and then he threw punches.
Right.
Again, punching a man with a helmet on. And then while A.J. Green did say after the game that he won't do it again, it's a learning experience, we did hear the line from him, I'm a player, I'm a man. Oh, got it. Please, go ahead. Yeah.
It's halftime running out. I'm not going to take no cheap shot like that. So, as a man, that's disrespectful. I'm not going to tolerate disrespect like that. And, we can't fight on the field, but, he just got under my skin. I can't let that happen. I've been the Ultimate Pro all this long. I can't let little things like that get to me. So.
And he's right, but there was a point, a man, he said, as a player, as a father, was another quote he said, come on. You don't do it. You can't do it. I know he was frustrated. He said Jalen Ramsey was kind of cheaping him the whole game, and he just snapped. There it happens. You lose your emotion. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Every player has done it to an extent. But let me tell you what, maybe a future in MMA. As I said, you don't a lot of times see the rear chokehold, but he did it. As I mentioned, George St. Pierre did it over the weekend against Michael Bisping in the third round, and the rear chokehold. I'm telling you, you got, if you're watching on ESPN2, we're showing them right now. It's a good rear chokehold. When St. Pierre did it, Bisping had two choices, and they both ended with the word out, tap out or pass out, and he chose to pass out. And A.J. Green had a good rear chokehold, but then he started punching him. Once you throw a punch, you're done. But you don't punch a guy with a helmet on. That's the one thing you just don't do. And then the one thing you always got to be careful of in a fight is who comes flying in, because that's when the injuries can really start happening. Like when Mike Evans came flying in, I don't know what Jameis was doing, pushing Lattimore in the neck with his two fingers. I have no clue what he was doing. And Lattimore just turned around and pushed him. And then, man, if you're going to do that, you better get your head on a swivel, because it's the guys that as my son put it this morning, it's the cavalry that's coming that you got to keep your head on a swivel for, of what happens in a fight when everybody's trying to defend everybody else. But, man, I
thought Sean Payton was going to start throwing punches out there.
Sean Payton was losing his mind. Mike Evans is going to lose some money. Because what they can do after the game is go look back at all this and fine people.
Correct.
And that's what they're going to do.
Well, there are going to be a lot of fines.
And Mike Evans even said what I did was childish. I shouldn't have done it. I was defending my quarterback and blah, 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 this and that. I get it. I get all the things that are said after a game, and all he got was a 15-yarder. I thought for sure he was going to be tossed, but none of the officials saw it. And you're right. Obviously, they're not allowed to go to replay to film. And
someone in New York is watching all this stuff, right? All these replay reversals are now coming out of some
New York
control center in New York.
So they can see all that too.
New York could see all of that and say, okay, hold on a second. You got to throw out Mike Evans.
Yeah.
And in the other case, they could have said, don't throw out Jalen Ramsey.
He didn't do anything. He barely pushed him, and then A.J. lost his mind, went MMA on him. So, yeah, I completely agree, but it got active yesterday.
All right, we'll get the thoughts of Jeff Saturday. He'll join us shortly. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive, celebrating 5 years and more than 500 cars donated to vets. To learn more, visit keys2progress.com. Quickly, because I have a moment to sneak it in here, and then we will get back to it more a little bit later when Booger is here. But on the really big college games over the weekend, I'll give you the 4 big notes, because it was a tumultuous college football weekend. Number 6, Ohio State lost to Iowa by 31 points. You could say that it was a letdown emotionally after the huge come-from-behind win against Penn State last week. Mm-hmm. Iowa's very tough to beat at home. Whatever it is,
they got smoked.
Take them out of the conversation.
Yep.
They will not be in the Final Four. Number 5, Oklahoma, outlasting Oklahoma State in a game that featured 114 points. In my opinion, that game didn't do a whole lot for their style points, but they won. And at the end of the day, I believe Oklahoma is in a position right now where if they win out, they're in.
This is the week against TCU.
Michigan State, in a game that featured a 3-hour and 20-minute rain delay or weather delay, knocks off Penn State. So a couple of things happen. Penn State is out. Ohio State is out. Michigan State controls their own destiny in the Big Ten. But if they should beat Wisconsin or someone else, and even if they wind up playing Wisconsin, that's who Wisconsin beats in the Big Ten championship game. The Big Ten may have played themselves out of the Final Four.
I'm going to tell you who is going to be the most sick. if Michigan State would run, now they have Ohio State coming up, coming off that loss. So if they were to win that and somehow beat Wisconsin, they have 2 losses. They're not getting in the playoffs. That, your Northwestern Wildcats would have ended their season. Because other than that, if they didn't lose that game, their only loss would have been to Notre Dame,
right,
who's ranked 3rd right now. But that overtime loss to Northwestern absolutely cost them because they are a tough team to play. And let's see where they go. But to your point, if a 2-loss team is now playing an undefeated Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship and even Wisconsin wins, I don't know what that's going to do for them. They're in a lot of trouble.
I mean, this weekend could not have broken better. Yep. For Notre Dame.
Yep.
And the last reason for that is Miami winning. So now you got game day going down there to Coral Gables this weekend, Notre Dame, Miami. I mean, if you're old enough to remember, Notre Dame, Miami used to mean something special.
Oh, without a doubt.
Those were unbelievable matchups.
Catholic versus convicts.
It's been a very long time since we've had that. But now, the way everything broke this weekend, Mike, to me, Notre Dame is a lock. If they win this game, they're going to the playoffs.
Well, let me go to the other side of that. Look at Miami. You know, and Jeff Fiegels and I have already started texting one another. Jeff went to the U. Jeff went to the U and then kicked in the league for 22 years. And his son, Zach, is a true freshman punter. He is punting. He is their punter at the U right now. He's texting me how he's heading down there for the weekend. He wants to be the celebrity picker for game day down there. And let me go, and I agree on Notre Dame's side because I think Notre Dame is beating Stanford. Stanford loses. Bryce Love is kept in check. I think Notre Dame, now they'll have Navy after this and then finish up in Stanford. This is the game. I think if Notre Dame gets by this, they are going to run the table. But if Miami gets by this, Miami looked the best they did in the beginning of the game coming out against Virginia Tech because Miami would be sluggish in games, not have the lead, have to come back. They didn't do that against Virginia Tech. They looked like a really good Miami team. I love that turnover chain that they have when they get a turnover. This is the matchup. If Miami wins this and then gets to the ACC title game against Clemson and they win that, Miami's in.
Oh, for sure.
Miami is absolutely
There's nothing to even discuss.
And if Notre Dame gets by this, I think they run it, and I think they're in as well.
Clearly, if Miami does that, then they're undefeated. So there's going to be nothing to talk about.
Well, we're talking about Wisconsin being undefeated and left out. So,
but they would have beaten Notre Dame and Clemson.
I agree.
Miami is a lock. The only reason I didn't say it that way is Miami, even if they win this game, still has to beat Clemson.
Yes, they do.
If Notre Dame wins this game, they're going to beat Stanford, and they're going to beat Navy.
I think they are. Yeah.
So this game is almost feels like a playoff game, which is the beauty of college football.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Jeff Saturday is in our studio. Nothing better than talking football on a Monday with Jeff Saturday. And Jeff, I want to start with what I think is kind of a complicated question. Because you were mostly on really good teams during your career, right. But I have to believe somewhere along the line you were on bad teams, too. You were on the team the year Peyton got hurt, right?
Yes, correct.
You've been on teams that lose like crazy. So for those of us who are primarily fans, what things should we be looking for to be determining the line between that team is playing like crazy and that team, some people use the word quit, and I don't like to use the word quit because I don't think guys aren't trying.
Right.
But, like, you watched the Giants play yesterday, and there are plays where that touchdown that Robert Woods had, I mean, the Giants aren't even looking in his direction. Yeah. They have no interest in getting. What kinds of things do you look for to say that team is giving maximum effort and that team isn't?
Yeah, I mean, you think 3rd and 33, that should not happen, right? I mean, you got Woods coming across, and similar to the play you show with Hill, right? People are out of position. You don't really see the effort that you would normally like to see. But from a player perspective, it snowballs. And I think fans sometimes don't realize when teams start running up the score and everything they seem to be doing. I think they scored 8 of their first 9 drives yesterday against the Giants. I mean, it does take the wind out of your sail. So to expect the guys to be flying around at 100 miles an hour when you're down 35 or whatever that number is, it is difficult. I would say from the Giants' perspective, so much has happened. To just lay it all on the defense, that was a bad day. I mean, and everybody has a bad day. I remember we lost 41-0 in the playoffs against the Jets, and everybody wrote us up. This team, the window is shut. They're closed. They're finished. They're all these kind of things. We came back the next year, had a good year. We played a bad game, and when it got bad, it got real bad and got real ugly. So I would say the things you look for are the hope of the future, right? The OBJs of the world, guys getting back healthy. However you look at it, your defense is going to do better. You got to get O-linemen. You try to find the positives in there. Is the line getting better? Is the back doing his job? Everybody's trying to beat up on Eli as well right now. Eli's got nobody to throw. I mean, this is a difficult situation all the way through. And from a defensive perspective, when your offense can't help you and then the defense is struggling, it just gets ugly. I don't like the word quit either, because I don't feel like guys quit. It looked really bad.
Here's what happens. Here's what goes on, and I think, Jeff, you would agree with this. Backside of a lot of things. Okay, for a defensive player, we work on pursuit drill every day.
Right.
You always want to run at people. So now you're the backside. Are you running as hard?
No.
You're the backside DN, D tackle, and the plays sweep away. Are you running?
Right.
You're the backside corner. Are you running? Same thing on offense. You're the receiver side blocker. Right. You'll block, but the backside receiver, is he blocking? That backside tackle, is he cutting off? Is he going to throw at that backer?
Right.
Is he going to that's where you see it. Play side usually is fine. When you have to engage right there and it's coming at you, offensively or defensively, normally you're going to give that effort because it's a physical game. It's everybody else. Normally you see the hustle. What you don't see is you don't see that pursuit on either side of the ball.
And that's a great point. The devil's in the details in football anyway. And it's the minute things like he's talking about on the backside. That backside, the backside tight end getting inside that six technique who's slanting. He's not nearly as interested in getting his head across and taking that shot when he's down those amount of points.
And next thing you know, that back who's going the other way wants to cut back.
Absolutely.
And
it just magnifies and looks really, really bad.
Mike and Jeff Saturday is in our studio. Speaking of your former team, and I was watching a lot of the game yesterday with the Colts and the Texans, and what I found myself thinking mostly about is just how good Deshaun Watson is.
Yes.
Because if you look back at the last few weeks, the Texans put up 38 points, 33 points, 34 points, 57 points, 33 points. Yesterday against the Colts, who had only previously beaten the winless Browns and 49ers, they scored 7 offensive points. They lost 20-14. One of the touchdowns was on defense.
Right.
So, what does that say more about Savage, or does it say more about Watson?
I think both, but to your point, Watson was playing absolutely lights out. This guy was screaming towards an MVP, a rookie. A rookie player of the year, not MVP, a rookie player of the year. Mm-hmm. He was playing lights out, and the energy he brought to that offense, whether he was getting Fuller involved, Hopkins involved, Miller involved, you name it. What makes quarterbacks separate themselves is they get everybody else involved. And I think when you see Savage and the way he was struggling with accuracy, decision-making, all the things that he was struggling with yesterday, guys kind of fall out. They don't know exactly where to be on their routes, right? They don't know. And with Watson being able to extend plays and move around in the pocket and be that run threat, now defenses, they got to play you a little bit different. I can tell you yesterday, the Colts didn't have any conversation about Tom Savage beating them outside the pocket. Not one conversation. If he gets out and gets a first down, you live with it. You don't even discuss it. With Deshaun Watson, somebody's spying. Corners are going to sag off. They're going to try to come down and play. Safety's got to keep their eyes in the middle of the field. All of those things are different when you change to a guy like Tom Savage from what he did yesterday. Listen, the Colts fought. They fought as hard as you can fight. For a team that struggled the way they did, sheared to make the play at the end of the game, you got to give them credit as well. But to your point, Savage struggled. Watson was incredible, and hopefully gets healthy and gets back to that level, because it makes watching the game so much fun. And you listen, you talked about before, we talked about the Giants and their struggle with giving up 50. There's been a lot more teams giving up 50 plus this year than I've ever seen. And so when offenses get on a roll right now, for some reason, it snowballs and can get ugly. Even the Broncos yesterday. Yeah. So you got a lot of defense that once these teams start getting it and hitting all cylinders, it's been tough to stop.
You got a team that's trying to make chicken salad out of what. You wonder if you'll see McGloin. You wonder if you'll see Yates in there as Bill O'Brien. We know he'll go through some quarterbacks.
Yes, he will.
Try and find a spark somewhere, some way to try and stay in that. On the side of the good, let's go to the NFC. Who do you take? Rams, Eagles, Saints?
I'm going Eagles. Listen, you just look at this team, and Schwartz has that defense. They are flying around. And the crazy part is, whether it's Darby, whether it's Fletcher Cox, these guys miss games, and you don't even know they've missed games. There's been a ton of guys who have been bumped up, bruised, whatever. They're missing, and that defense is not slowing down. You're watching their front four just dominate. At will, which makes their corners jump in routes. They are flying down. Safeties are getting involved in the game. Defensively, they played really well. Then you flip it over to the other side. What Wentz has done, similarly to Deshaun Watson, is incredible. He can beat you with his legs outside the pocket. He extends plays. I love the pickup of Jay Ajayi. I'm just going to tell you, because with Blunt, with Clement, with all those guys in Smallwood, they didn't have the home run.
Right.
He brings that home run. He showed it yesterday. That complete and with Doug Peterson, with the commitment to the run that he has given, this Eagles team is going to be tough to beat because they'll focus on the run and they'll pound you, and then Wentz can beat you with his arm. So I think they're playing as good as any team in the NFL right
Jeffrey and Aguilar, and they played without
my
yesterday.
Word.
They've got a lot of weapons.
Absolutely. And they spread it around. They kind of have that Andy Reid mentality, only Doug Peterson is much more committed to the run game and establishing that than Andy Reid is.
The best of Mike and Mike.
We'll do football, college, and pro with Booger McFarland, who joins us here now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line from his palatial estate in Tampa, Florida. Good morning, Booger McFarland.
Top of the morning, guys. What's going on?
I don't know why that makes me laugh. He's sitting, for those of you listening on the radio, he's on Skype. He's sitting just sitting back in a chair. How would you describe the look here, Golic?
At first, when I saw him, I thought he had a Florida shirt on. I thought he was didn't know what was going on.
This is just an Adidas golf shirt. I wouldn't put a Florida shirt on. That thing's a dumpster fire up there in Gainesville right now.
Oh, and there we go, ladies and gentlemen.
And you know that we're the only thing standing between him and the first tee right now. So let's get to some football conversation here. Let's start with some pro stuff, because you were texting me yesterday some thoughts on some similarities you see between the Buccaneers and the Giants.
Yeah, Greeny, it's amazing. Last year we were always talking about how head coaches get their jobs. Some are defensive coordinators, some are offensive coordinators. When you look at the Giants and the Buccaneers, they chose the offensive coordinator in McAdoo and Dirk Cutter. And boy, have those situations backfired, especially in Tampa. And to me, Greeny, Tampa Bay looks like a team that's no longer playing for their head coach. The discipline issues, when you see guys just all out, just going and just blatantly hitting a guy in the back of the head, and your quarterback, who's supposed to be the franchise, he's instigating the fight. And then you start to hear some of the rumblings that the head coach is just in over his head. I think there's something to the fact that the two offensive coordinators that got the head coaching jobs, their teams are struggling. Because I believe that success leaves clues. I also believe that failure leaves clues also. And I think if you look at how they're playing in New York and you look at how they're playing in Tampa, we may have a situation where two guys were offensive coordinators, but they weren't made out to be CEOs and head coaches. And to me, that's a glaring issue for each organization.
Coaches come and go. Franchise quarterbacks are supposed to stay there for a while. Where are you with Jameis Winston in those light?
I think Jameis Winston is going to be a franchise quarterback, goalie, but for me, he's got to grow up. Like the pregame speeches and get everybody hyped, I get it. Drew Brees does it in Tampa. It's something that every player does individually. But yesterday almost seemed like Jameis took it to a level that I've never seen before. And to me, if I'm the Glazer family, if I'm the head coach of this team, I'm telling my star quarterback, yeah, I want you pumped up. I want you hyped. But I want you also to be a leader. And yesterday, you almost made a mockery of being a leader with the licking your fingers and I want to eat a W. To me, he went a little bit too far. He's not playing very well, and you can attribute that to him and also the head coach, who's an offensive guru. So I think Jameis has to grow up a lot, and he has to start by how he prepares early in the week. More importantly, how he shows his teammates on game day. Because if Jameis Winston, your franchise quarterback, is going to instigate fights and he's going to start ruckus is on the field, then you're giving a path for everybody on that field, all of your teammates to do the same. So they have to get Jameis under control. You can't have your franchise quarterback. Excuse me. I've never seen Tom Brady. I've never seen Drew Brees do that. Excuse me.
Booger, you all right?
I think he either is emotional. He's either emotional about what he's talked about, or he just had one of those chips that we're going to eat on Thursday.
That was a very Terrell Owens kind of moment there that you sounded like you know what? Yeah, go ahead.
No, there was something in my throat, and I was channeling my TO there.
Yeah.
That's my quarterback.
I think I think you fought through it great.
You did.
Okay, yeah, Mike, we tried to.
Hey, we couldn't tell.
No. It was. Okay.
Hey, Golic, Greeny would have stopped the interview at that point and said, "You know what? I can no longer go on."
He would have thrown the break.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Run a commercial. Okay, let's get back to this, though, because if you're talking about Jameis, let's spin it forward then also, because you got Winston and you got Mariota in that draft, and people were talking about that being the two franchise cornerstones. And now you fast forward to the following year, and you had Jared Goff and you had Carson Wentz, who people had significant questions about coming in. Neither one of them felt anywhere near to be the surefire guys that the previous two did. And then throw in Dak Prescott, who most people thought, I think a lot of people thought wasn't an NFL quarterback, and the whole league passed on him repeatedly. And all of a sudden, that class seems to be greatly outplaying the previous group. And you look particularly at Goff, the way he played yesterday, and Wentz, they're really coming into their own.
No doubt, Greeny. And to me, everyone was so fast to throw Jared Goff away. Remember Hard Knocks? He couldn't even get a play out, and we were like, man, this kid's a bust. I think it's a lesson for us in life. Don't always jump to conclusions. Sometimes when you give a kid a little time, a little TLC, more importantly, when you get the right coach, there's an offensive coach there in McVay who understands how to bring a young quarterback along. He understands how to get a young quarterback going. And Carson Wentz is probably the MVP of the league right now. But with that being said, guys, I'm going to tell you this, and people are going to laugh, and people will say I'm crazy. If you gave me a choice out of all those quarterbacks, I'd still take Dak Prescott, because if you watch Dak Prescott play and how the offense is running, he's making plays, guys, and he's doing things that I don't think other quarterbacks can do with the improvisational plays, the way he's scrambling, his physical ability to run the football. I know Carson Wentz is right there. My preference would still be Dak Prescott, though.
Thing about it is, I mean, basically splitting hairs with all three of them right now, and that's a testament to those three guys, especially Goff coming off of that rookie year. So those are three young guys that everybody's counting on for the future. And as I just mentioned earlier, coaches come and go, and we think the coach could be going in New York as well with McAdoo. What do you do with Eli? You just heard McAdoo say he's maybe start looking at other players, and the quarterback position is included. Is that something you think about a few weeks down the road, actually getting a look at like a Davis Webb, the rookie from Cal, or is Eli untouchable to you?
To me, Eli's untouchable. Eli's in the class, guys, with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and those guys. He's a two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, and he's handled everything in New York City like the great professional that you would expect the Manning family would be. And to me, this is ludicrous talking about benching Eli unless you're saying Eli is not your quarterback next year. Now, if you made that decision to say that we're moving on from Eli, then okay, yeah, you give Davis Webb, you give some of these other guys a shot. But unless you've made that decision, you put Eli in the starting lineup. He's earned the right by doing what he's done in the city of New York and how he's handled his business. He's earned the right to go out there with his teammates every Sunday and play. And more importantly, Golic, what message are you sending to your team if you take Eli Manning out? What message are you sending to the left guard and Snacks Harrison and those guys to say, you know what? Yeah, we're going to experiment right now. So do you want me to experiment with my technique as a defensive lineman? I thought the object of this is to go out and try to win every game. And when you start putting young guys in there, basically what you're telling me is that's no longer the object, and I just can't do that.
Mike and Mike Booger McFarland with us here. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Let's get to some college, which was interesting. Right now, outside of Wisconsin, the longest winning streak of any team in the Big Ten Conference belongs to the Northwestern Wildcats, who have won 4 straight, 3 of them in overtime. I mentioned that, A, self-servingly, and B, also because the conference big boys may very well this past weekend have played themselves out of contention for the college football playoff. Is Wisconsin now the only hope the Big Ten has to get into the Final Four, Booger McFarland?
Well, Greeny, I think it's their best hope. I don't know if it's their only hope. To me, the Big Ten is in a very, very tough situation because with the events that happened this weekend, they're basically guaranteed that Wisconsin, even if they finish undefeated, they're going to face a 2-loss team from the Eastern Division, the Eastern side of the Big Ten, in Indianapolis in the Big Ten championship game. And if that's the case, guys, I'm going to tell you, Wisconsin, if they face a 2-loss Michigan State team, who controls their own fate, by the way, or a 2-loss Ohio State team, so now you put them against Wisconsin that's undefeated. I'll say this, and everybody's going to disagree and call me crazy. Wisconsin could do that, be 13-0, and not guaranteed a spot in the college football playoff. Because, Greeny, if you go back and look at the 3 years that the college football playoff has been in existence, the 12 teams that have made the college football playoff, they've averaged 4 top 25 wins on their way to the college football playoff. You know how many Wisconsin has right now, Greeny?
Right, zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
They have zero. So they can be undefeated and still not make it to the college football playoff. And I know Golic's his head is about to explode, but it's a real possibility, guys.
No, listen, it seems so odd to say a Power 5 can be undefeated, but listen, we've seen that committee, not bring in conference champs, not worry about head-to-head. You just don't know where they're going to be each year and what their criteria is going to be. You saw in the first rankings last week, they did take into play conference or head-to-head with Oklahoma being ahead of Ohio State. So let's go to the Big 12. Is the winner of Oklahoma TCU, do they still or have the legitimate shot to be in, or is it only Oklahoma, even though TCU was number 8 in the initial rankings? Is winner still in this?
I think Oklahoma and TCU still have a viable shot to get to the college football playoff, because if you look at Oklahoma, they have that signature win against Ohio State in Norman. They've beaten Oklahoma State. If they beat TCU, they could possibly beat TCU or Oklahoma State again in the Big 12 championship game, and with that all-important 13th data point. So I think Oklahoma clearly has everything in front of them, especially where they're ranked right now. And if you're TCU, you only have one loss. It's to Iowa State, who's playing very well. And if you go into Norman, you beat Oklahoma, and you might get Oklahoma, you might get Oklahoma State again in the Big 12 championship game. So I think both teams, to me, this game this Saturday in Norman, I'm not going to say it's kind of a play-in game, but the winner of that game still has everything in front of them. And the loser of that game this weekend, their college football playoff hopes go by the wayside.
And, of course, with the way that game played out this weekend, it did great things for the Heisman hopes of Baker Mayfield. But yes. I just want to hear the two of you guys as defensive players talk about what you saw in that game. Because, Booger, even I like a high-scoring game. I mean, I don't mind a little bit of a track meet. But even I, at some point, was like,
I can't stand it.
Is there any defense at all?
I mean, this is a Power 5 conference. These are Division I players. To not be able to get or defensive players or play defense well enough to stop 100-point games, to me, is embarrassing. I don't know any other word, Booger, than that. It's just – there's no way you can sit there and say, well, it's just because of such of the offensive firepower out there. These are some of the best players in the country when they're coming out of high school, and they're going to this conference where they don't play defense. To me, it is absolutely embarrassing.
Golic, I completely agree with you. It's absolutely terrible defense, and it's the fundamentals. I'll give you a prime example. If you look at, there was a play where Justice Hill, the running back for Oklahoma State, he burst a long run. And there were two Oklahoma defenders. Well, defense tells me the outside got it. The same play we're showing right there. The cornerback is supposed to come up on the outside, turn the ball carrier back to his help, which is the safety coming down the middle. What does the cornerback do? Cornerback goes inside, running back comes outside. And so to me, we can talk about how bad the Big 12 defenses are, which they absolutely are. But I have to go to the coaching, because I wonder if the Big 12 defensive coaches are coaching their guys in fundamentals, or do the head coaches, the Lincoln Rileys, the Mike Gundys, everyone, Matt Campbell, do they say, you know what? We're just going to buy into the aura of this league, and we're just going to try to outscore everybody. Now, with that being said, guys, I'm taking nothing away from Baker Mayfield. He was outstanding, and as much as we gave love to Saquon Barkley, like Greeny and I were ready to hand the Heisman out about 3 weeks ago, Greeny, and guess what, Greeny? I was with you. Mm-hmm. But right now, Greeny, Saquon Barkley, with no undoing of his own, I put a lot of responsibility on James Franklin in the play calling, but I think he's played his way kind of into second or third place on the Heisman right now. To me, my Heisman list would go Baker Mayfield number 1. It would go Josh Adams number 2, and Saquon Barkley number 3, based on where we are. Because Saquon Barkley's last 3 weeks have not been really good. Even though he had the long kickoff return against Ohio State, he's not running the football well, which is what we expect him to do.
One guy who can certainly shine on the big stage, and that's what Baker Mayfield did, could be Josh Adams. As Notre Dame goes down to Miami, game day will be there. And what a chance for both these teams. Obviously, Notre Dame needs to win out to have to be in this thing. And if Miami goes undefeated, beating Notre Dame and then beating probably Clemson in the ACC title game, they're going to be in. So, man, it's good. These two teams, we know the history, certainly with the Catholics versus convicts years ago and just the bad blood at times, to get this thing going again, Booger.
No doubt. And you know what, Golic? I grew up watching Michael Stonebreaker and Chris Zorich and Ray Lewis. Like, I grew up watching this rivalry. I tell anybody, I wanted to go to Miami. Miami didn't recruit me. They said I was too small to play defensive line. And, I went to LSU, and the rest is history. But just the history of the program, the history of this rivalry, I can't wait to watch it, because the perception around the country is you had the good guys in Notre Dame and Golic against the bad guys in Miami and Warren Sapp and Ray Lewis. And to me, it made America choose sides. It made America pick, do you want to be a good guy or do you want to be a bad guy? Now, I know I'm not calling Miami convicts, but that's the theme that you're going to hear all week long. It's going to be the Catholics versus the convicts. And the key to this game is going to come down to the line of scrimmage, Golic, because Notre Dame is going to come off the bus running the football with Josh Adams. Miami has a smaller, athletic defensive line. Their front seven is ferocious. Can Miami's front seven do what they did against Virginia Tech? Stop the run, slow down the mobile quarterback. If they can do that, they'll have a good shot. Miami wins this game. Miami most likely is going to play Clemson in Charlotte in the ACC title game with a winner getting into the college football playoff scenario. Notre Dame wins this game. Notre Dame then, they're almost assured of running the table. This is really Notre Dame's last big test, in my opinion. You beat Miami, in my opinion, an 11-1 Notre Dame team can book their ticket to the college football playoff. So this is almost I'm not going to say it's a play-in game, but it's a playoff eliminator because the loser, in my opinion, doesn't really have a chance, but the winner has everything in front of them.
Man, they really do. It's going to – I'm so happy that this is center stage.
That's the best thing about the sport.
Yeah.
And again, it's why everyone who wants to expand the playoff, do it at your own risk, because what you lose is this. You lose the fact that on Saturday night, November, what is this going to be, the 11th?
11th.
You're getting a championship caliber game, and that is the best thing about college football. Booger McFarland, well done. I'm glad that whatever your little incident there was, it didn't take a real toll on you, and we will see you later in the week.
Greeny. Listen, Greeny, I was battling. I channeled my inner Mike Golic instead of my inner Mike Greenberg, and I fought through it.
Well done.
Good man.
Thank you, Booger.
Thanks, Booger.
Booger McFarland with us.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, guys, y'all got to get along, man. You know what I mean? This is
only got 2 weeks left. Who cares at this point?
Did you see what happened in the NFL yesterday?
Yeah.
Listen, man, we're about peace today, right? We're going to be zen. We're going to find ourselves.
You think Greeny really wants to fight me?
I would be like Jalen Ramsey.
Not if you paper cut
at the end of the play, and then I'm lying on the ground. What the heck happened here?
So you're going to become the victim?
Why did that happen? By the way, here's my overriding take on that. When the officials are sorting out what all the punishments should be at the end of a fight, and there was Frosty Rucker shoved Carlos Hyde into another zip code yesterday, and the one on the sideline with Mike Evans and all of that.
Lattimore, yeah.
I think someone who's looking at that from the video, like the New York people, should be sorting that out. Because if they were doing that, they would have said, don't suspend Jalen Ramsey. And don't throw him out.
Right.
There's no way in the world Mike Evans wouldn't have gotten thrown out.
Absolutely.
The officials on the field just don't see everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to catch everything that goes on. It's hard to know who's the instigator, why things started, and who, especially in this case with Mike Evans, who really came with the Bush Leagueist of plays. And so, obviously, this should be something that they handle more like a review necessarily than the way that they try to do it on the field. And that's probably something they'll look at, especially with the number of fights increasing this year compared to what you've seen in previous years.
Again, if you don't know, A.J. Green from the Bengals, Jalen Ramsey from Jacksonville, both got thrown out. Carlos Hyde from San Francisco, Frosty Rucker, Hassan Reddick from Arizona got thrown out. Mike Evans should have got thrown out. How close have you ever come to getting thrown out?
Oh, I don't think I've ever come close at all. I've wanted to fight some people at certain times, but we were a very good team, so most games we were in, so I wasn't going to fight and get kicked out. But Ike Taylor got in a fight with Hakeem Nicks in the preseason, and I kind of finished off that fight. I just knew better than throw a punch. You know, I came in with I'm breaking it up choke.
Right.
I'm breaking it up choke, not necessarily like I'm punching him in the face. And you just have to know how, to kind of massage the situation in those cases. I will say this about the A.J. Green thing. I understand Barry Church talking about the kind of sneak rear naked choke.
Yeah, rear naked chokehold.
Yeah. So listen, before I start, I don't condone any of those things. I don't think that, there should be fights on the field. I don't think you should sneak up behind the guy and choke him. But I was actually very excited to see it.
Just think you said that qualifier.
Right. Just from A.J. Green's standpoint, this is a guy, I want you to think about his great career thus far and think of anything he said or done that you remember other than his actual play. This isn't a guy you see these type of things from. And Jalen Ramsey, this is the way he plays. He gets in people's head.
He does.
He had Steve Smith wanting to meet him outside the locker room. He has DeAndre Hopkins each and every time they play ready to fight. And A.J. Green was like, you know what, man? I already see where this is going. Let me just shut it down right now. And again, people, I'm not saying people should go out there and fight.
Wrong for doing it. He can't get thrown out of the game.
But when I look at A.J. Green's personality and sometimes how defensive backs like myself or people in general that play the game can take that type of passive, quiet, soft-spoken personality and place the names like soft and timid on a guy. I'm glad to see him say, you know what, man, today is just not the day. Enough is enough. And obviously you don't want these type of things in your league. If you're Marvin Lewis, you definitely don't want him from the Bengals because you get him enough from other guys. But I was kind of excited to see him fight and mix it up a little bit.
I would have been a lot more excited. I don't share that too much because to me it's just dumb. You're getting thrown out of a game. To me, there are other ways. I'm sure you found them. I know I have. There are other ways to exact your revenge on a football field. I would have been way more impressed had he found a way to exact some revenge and remain in the game. That, to me, is the way to do it.
Well, listen, we're not talking about who's impressed. I'm just talking about I'm happy I saw him fight.
Oh.
I'm happy that I saw that type of passion. And listen, here's the thing. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I always enjoyed getting into type of physical, verbal altercations with wide receivers. Because here was always my thought. You are not more physical than me. I know for sure when it comes to these pads, I'm way crazier than you are. So in the physical exchange, if we get heated to the point to where we want to exact physical punishment, I'm going to win.
Right.
Like if you come to block me and you come to crack me, I'm going to split you down the middle. If you catch this ball over the middle, I'm going to split you in half. All you can do is beat me deep. And though that may hurt my career at some point, and though I may hurt the team in the sense that I gave up a touchdown, you are not going to physically hurt me, which is the point you get to at that point. So when it gets to that game, when we're in that game, like, oh, I'm mad at you, I want to have this, I want to see who's the most physical person, I'm going to win. Because all you can do is beat me for a touchdown. All the actual pain that will be inflicted today is going to be by me.
Yep.
So I do understand what you're saying, like, oh, score a touchdown? That don't hurt me. I've been scored on before. I ain't tripping.
That's why he went with the rear naked chokehold.
Right, but when they throw this slant to you and hang you out to dry, and it's your last play of the day, guess who won? Me. Ain't tripping.
Mike and Mike, tomorrow at this time we'll be talking to the Yankees' Aaron Judge. Right now, Ryan Clark is here with the straightest of the straight talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. That was a game that was played also without Leonard Fournette for entirely different reasons.
Yes.
And that's a kid you know, right? Coming from Miles Hugh. And there's any number of different things about this story that I found fascinating. One of them is that you read now that the reason for it is that he has apparently been repeatedly late for stuff and things like that. And everything I thought that I knew about him coming out of college would be the opposite of that. So it really surprised me. Were you surprised by that?
I was. I can be honest. I didn't hear about these type of actions or these type of irresponsible things done by Leonard in college. On the other side of that, you also have to realize, like, he's a legend. Right? This kid was rushing for over 1,500 yards as a freshman in high school. From the time I heard his name, I knew this is where he would end up as long as he was healthy. And so maybe some of those things were overlooked. Maybe he was babied in a way and allowed to do certain things because of his immense talent. And if you're down there in Jacksonville and if you're a team that's run by Tom Coughlin, you probably let that go longer. If some of the things we're hearing out of that camp is true or off that team is true, you've let this go longer than you probably would have let any other player. And I think this is a perfect time to show, hey, look, we can win games without you. This isn't LSU. This isn't St. Augustine in New Orleans, Louisiana. This is a professional football team. And there are other players on this team that you're accountable to. And so it's definitely in direct opposition of what I've always heard about him and what I've always felt in talking to him. He's always been extremely mature, but I think this is going to be a wake-up call for him that, you know what, life in the NFL goes on, whether you're hurt, whether you're irresponsible, whether you're cut. the games are still played. So I think if you look at this team with a new head coach, it's a smart move, and you still win the game.
Well, that's the thing. I think it worked out perfectly. They won the game. Not only did they win the game, they controlled the ball for 40 minutes. They ran the ball 40 times for 148 yards. So they basically just could look at him and say, see, we don't need you.
Exactly.
We didn't need you in this one. So you want to keep messing around, you're going to sit there and street close.
100% right. And so they get a win yesterday. Tennessee does too. They're both 5-3. And Houston, my goodness. I mean, Deshaun Watson now looks like the MVP of the league. So
we didn't know that already?
Well, I mean,
you didn't watch Tom Savage the first half of the Jacksonville game?
He was playing like the MVP, but they scored 7 offensive points yesterday against the Colts. 7, because they scored 14 points, and half of them were on defense. But so my point is, let's put them out of the conversation for the moment. I think I'm willing to. To me, it comes down to Tennessee and Jacksonville. In that division.
Absolutely.
Who do we buy?
Absolutely. I don't buy either of them as in I really, really, truly like them. And obviously, you always lean toward quarterbacks, and I believe the Titans have a better one.
Yeah.
But when I watch Jacksonville play defense, when I see the attitude that this team has now taken on, which is, you know what, we're going to run the ball. We're going to keep the ball out of Blake Bortles' hands by any means necessary. Whatever we can do to make sure you don't throw it, that's what we're going to do, and we're going to play great defense. We're going to rush the passer. We're going to let these DBs play the game that they've been playing throughout this season. I like Jacksonville because defense travels. And the Tennessee Titans haven't shown, even though they have the greatest of defensive coordinators in Dick LeBeau, they haven't shown that they can consistently stop people. So until that changes for me, I'm going to say the Jacksonville Jaguars are the team that comes out of the AFC South.
I agree, and I don't think either team's making a run in the playoffs.
Right.
But Jacksonville can run, and their defense is so good, and the Tennessee offense is good, but they're not that good.
Right.
They're not that
Absolutely.
good to overcome the Jacksonville defense. So I would lean to the defense.
Mike, and then that brings us all the way back, the point you were making, Ryan, to Tom Coughlin and his past longstanding relationship with Eli Manning, whom he coached for Eli's entire career with the Giants up until last season. And so if you don't feel that you can put the ball in Blake Bortles' hands and win big games, and you look at the Giants and their season spiraling hopelessly out of control and how bad they are, and we played some of your sound earlier today on how bad they are, like a total house cleaning, feeling like it's on the way there. Could you see an NFL where next season Eli Manning is the quarterback of the Jaguars?
I don't want to see an NFL
because
where that is, because I think he deserves to be one of those players that plays his whole career with one team. I think what he's done in New York, the things that he brought there, even with some of the inconsistencies, I think this is what Eli Manning deserves. But what we do know is if Peyton can get it, anybody can get it. And so there's definitely a scenario where Eli Manning can end up there. Obviously, it's going to be on the Jacksonville Jaguars to evaluate him and think, okay, can he come here and still play? It's going to be a situation where they feel they're one player away, and that player is quarterback. And you're going to have to protect Eli. You're going to have to run the football, which is what the Jacksonville Jaguars do. So depending on how Blake Bortles finished this season, depending on how they feel about Eli in New York, because if you move on from Eli during the season, which it seems Ben McAdoo is open to doing, then you're saying he's not your quarterback ever. He's never going to be the quarterback of this team. And so there is definitely a possibility of seeing Eli Manning down there. You know, we've seen, especially now, so many GMs and so many organizations making moves to win now. This has become like basketball. This has become like baseball where guys switch teams and switch jerseys. So that's definitely something that is a possibility.
Looking at teams that are winning now, Rams, Eagles, Saints. Where do you lean to in the NFC?
The Eagles. The Eagles right now, I'm very impressed with the Saints. I said in the preseason, Louis Riddick and I were having a conversation, and I was trying to convince him that the Saints were going to be good on defense. And so we come in the first week.
That's some hard convincing.
Yeah,
huh?
but you know, I live there, so I watched all the preseason games. And so Louis Riddick comes out the first week, and he and I both pick the Saints, and they get drummed. And Thielen and Diggs are just all over the place, and it's just terrible. And so Louis is saying very bad words to me offset. I know many of you don't believe that Louis says bad words because y'all think he's like Black James Bond and stuff, but Louis says bad words. So he's all mad at me, right? And then and like last night I was like, see, told you, Louis, told you they'd be good. But when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles and their quarterback is playing at such a high level, the only negative I saw to this team was being able to defend people outside of the numbers. I didn't necessarily know, especially once Darby went down, if they had the cornerback play to compete. Jalen Mills, an LSU guy, has come on and honestly played exceedingly better than I thought he would. Douglas on the other side. You had Patrick Robertson, who is a veteran. These guys have played so well in the secondary, and I think it's just the confidence that they've built through beating teams and through playing together and through the chemistry and the camaraderie of being winners, that this team, to me right now, looks like the playoffs is going to have to go through Philadelphia, and I don't see teams beating them there.
They do have a lot of diverse weapons on offense. They can do a variety of different things with. They look very good on defense. I tell you what, though, Sean McVay to me is the coach of the year, and solely for what he has done with Jared Goff. You want to talk about resurrecting a pick that looked like for everything they gave up to get him at number 1 overall, looked like he was going to be one of the great disasters of all time. For him now, all of a sudden, to be playing the way he's playing, a 31-year-old coach, that's remarkable.
Sean was my in my last year. I went back to Washington. We would have weekly therapy sessions on Monday morning because we weren't very good, and I would just
tell me about him. Yeah,
I would just go sit in his office and talk, just chop it up about life, chop it up about where the team is, different things that I think would help us come together and win some football games, and he would kind of share those ideas, and you could see then. I think he was like 27 or something crazy like that this dude wasn't like, I'm just about these X's and O's. He was trying to figure out ways to run teams. At that point, he knew he wanted to be where he was. He was obviously a prodigy as far as X's and O's go on offense, and he's showing that now. But his ability to galvanize these people, and you speak of Jared Goff, Todd Gurley as well.
Yeah,
Todd Gurley hadn't been the guy who he was his rookie year or the guy who played at Georgia. So he's done an amazing job of making this team, one, believe, but also making us all forget the perception we had of Jared Goff as soon as Hard Knocks went off. Jared Goff was doomed to most of us the day after we finished watching Hard Knocks because it really made him seem, what's a good word for this? My expert word. Not smart.
Yeah.
It made him seem like he wasn't very intelligent. And now we see this guy can make all the throws. He's shown toughness. He's played so well this year that you're now not questioning, well, why'd they get him first? Or should Carson Wentz have been the draft pick? He's played so well, you are now forgetting those things. And this is a team that's going to be tough down the stretch.
Yeah, they are. Whitworth they get at left tackle. Sullivan they bring in at center, so they revamp the old line a little bit as well. So certainly a team to watch. How about either Kansas City, who's now lost 3 in a row, or Seattle losing? I was surprised the way they lost. Who are you worried about either one?
Seattle. And the crazy thing is, Golic, I've been worried about them while they were winning. Last week, I went on and I said that Russell Wilson should
real quick. Kansas City just lost. They didn't lose 3 in a row.
Right.
Okay.
3 out of 4.
Right.
Okay, and so last week, I went on my Russell Wilson's in the MVP race rant. The reason is everybody else is so bad. And the things that he was doing and willing them to win, I thought was amazing. He's now gone from game manager to, if you don't play well, we don't win. And that's what we saw yesterday. It's hard to get a running game. They rushed for almost 140 yards yesterday, or 140 yards. He has over 70 of those yards. He throws the 2 picks. They're not able to move the ball. They aren't able to protect him. And so Russell Wilson has done all of these things by himself. Yesterday, Earl Thomas didn't play. We know how important he is to that defense. When's the last time a team is down to Seattle and they have a 2-minute drive and you pick that quarterback over the Seattle defense?
Unreal.
If his name's not Tom Brady, if his name's not Aaron Rodgers, who hasn't played great against Seattle, you're not thinking to yourself, they're going to score. They drove the ball down the field, had 2 huge plays in the 2-minute, and scored a touchdown to beat the Seattle Seahawks. So this defense isn't the same as well, and that worries me. I think Kansas City has just gotten too cute, to be honest with you, Golic. They kind of fell in love with, oh, look at us. We can do all this cool college stuff, instead of saying, you know what, I'm just going to turn around and hand it to Kareem Hunt. I'm just going to turn around and pitch it to Tyreek Hill. I'm just going to throw Travis Kelce option route reading off the linebacker. So I think Andy will read some of those things, look at some of those things, and figure that part out. And defensively, they're going to have to change some things up. But I feel like they have a more solid foundation to build on going forward than Seattle does.
Yeah, and the good news for them in Kansas City is that the rest of the division has underperformed.
Yeah, exactly.
Raiders get a win last night, but they haven't been nearly as good as we thought. The Chargers have come back into it a little bit, and Denver has lost 4 straight. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line with Ryan Clark here in our studios, who look around some of the other things happening in the league. I'm trying to remember this in my head. When you were in Washington, you were just describing your time with Sean McVay, Griffin was still the quarterback, right?
Yes.
So did you see much of Cousins? He's a fascinating person.
Remember, that was the year Cousins he played. Rob got hurt early on in the season. Actually, it was a play out of bounds against Cleveland in the preseason. Broke his ankle or did something crazy. We talked about him being a rat on a motorcycle before.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, we kind of know how that goes. And so Kirk, that year we played games and he was great sometimes and then he was awful. And when he was awful, he was really bad. But when he was on, he was amazing. And I think he's gotten rid of the totally awful days. He's done a good job of not just being in a position where you look at him and say, like, this guy can't be our quarterback. But he also hasn't given you that consistent franchise quarterback play that I think the Redskins are looking for to give him the type of money that he wants. But when you look at the other quarterbacks in this game, and we talked about Tom Savage earlier, obviously any quarterback that the Cleveland Browns trot out, and many other teams, even when you go to guys like Blake Bortles and different guys along that level, Kirk Cousins is better than a lot of quarterbacks in this league. And I think what he did yesterday, finding a way to win that game, finding a way to make the plays when 4 of your offensive linemen are on the sideline, 4 of your starters, I think was really huge for him. And even if you go back to the Kansas City game, he actually made the play to win the game. Josh Dawson just dropped the ball.
That's exactly
so I think he's taken a step, not necessarily in his overall play, but in the play in clutch moments, situational football, making the throws he needs to.
And I think what you said is huge. He doesn't have those awful where he's really, really, really good or really, really bad. He's really leveled that out.
Yes, exactly.
One final thing as we let you go, RC, and so it's great to have you here. When a receiver, and in this case a great one, like Julio Jones, drops a ball like the one he dropped yesterday, where he is as open as you can be, and the ball just hits him directly in the hand. It couldn't have thrown it any better, and he drops it. As a defensive back, do you say something to him?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's the thing.
You don't get into
Here's the other thing.
First of all,
have you ever seen Julio Jones in
big.
person?
Yes. Yeah. Large fellow.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, guys. I try to be a tough guy. I also try to be a smart guy. Julio Jones just dropped the ball that puts them back in the game. All I'm saying to Julio, hey, man, are you okay? Did you hurt yourself when you fell? Would you like some water, sir? Listen, hey, man, Julio is not going to hit me like Wilder was hitting this dude this weekend. He's not going to stand over there and throw haymakers and hop at my face because I ragged him after a loss. I'm going to shake his hand. I'm going to say, great game, Julio, because I know we're in the same division. I can't wait to see you again in Atlanta. Maybe I can take you to Gladys Knight's Waffles and Chicken.
Oh, fair enough. I mean, that sounds good. And again, that's an LSU guy and an Alabama guy. So, I mean, you got the whole thing going. But that was a stunning play.
It was. If you think about it, though, we've watched Julio drop balls, though.
Yeah, yes, we have.
It's not saying he's not sure-handed.
But he has.
But he's dropped footballs. And, anybody who's ever been, like, wide open, those are the hardest balls because you know that nobody's around you.
And you should catch it.
And you should catch it. You get so nervous watching that ball come down.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I hear you.
Paper cuts. Paper cuts
listen,
hurt. Especially when the commercial comes and the lady gets – I watch y'all in the barbershop every Friday morning.
Yeah.
And you got to stop being so soft, Greeny. At least so publicly.
I made the comment that commercial where the woman is like licking the envelope.
Gets a cut in her tongue.
I have to look away. That one freaks me out a lot. I'm not fond of the woman drinking the sour milk either. And that whole commercial
You're
really
asking
bums
him
me
to
out.
toughen up?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Golic, it's time. He's going to be on his own.
50-some-year-old man. I mean, he can't do it.
Greeny, you're in your 50s?
I am only 50. I'm not 50-something.
You're in your 50s.
I am
Greeny,
50.
you look good, man.
I know. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, I know. Seriously?
Wow.
I'll tell you what. Things are changing around here, man. Gosh.
RC, you're the best. Thank you very much.
You guys have a good one, man.
This has been the Best of Mike and Mike. Now you can subscribe to the Best of Mike and Mike in the Listen tab of the ESPN app.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast.